Hello and good evening, feeders. Today is January 17th, 2022, and my name is DJ. Joining me today, as always, we have Feeder Finance Patrick. Pat, if you'd like to say hello to our lovely users at home.
Hey guys.
Hey, so, starting with the TLDR, we're planning to release the roadmap once the user interface for peer-to-peer lending has been completed. We've released new sFEED staking ranks and historical ranking and balance. The only missing step regarding the peer-to-peer lending launch is getting the UI perfectly right, so that'll be coming just around the corner. And aside from the new FTM vaults we've launched, we've also completed many vaults on the new chain. Multi-chain, previously AnySwap, router integration will be complete in the next several weeks, and that'll make getting to all these new chains a whole lot easier. So, getting into the meat and potatoes of our update, as our feeders love to hear it called, the roadmap release. So, we've talked a bit about the roadmap before, but what do you have for us this week, Pat? You got any juicy details for the roadmap set to release? What is it, next week? Week after?
Uh, Timing wise, unclear, but it's not going to be, a month from now. It's going to be a lot sooner than that. But so there are a couple steps, and I can outline the steps, so at least you know the
Timeline.
the timeline of things.
Sure.
Well, for there's three things people are waiting for, right? First thing is our new chain release, and then the roadmap, and then our P2P lending. And internally, what we'll need to do to get to a roadmap is initially we were planning to get the UI completely done before the roadmap. But then as we were trying to, craft this roadmap, we realized that it takes a lot of text and a lot of explaining to do um, in order for people to really understand what the lending does without actually seeing that UI in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you sort of have to imagine that whole thing yourself in your head. And so we have, and that's also why we're sort of pushing out the roadmap for a bit, because that's sort of the key thing for this roadmap, which is the lending,
Mm-hmm.
because it will serve as a way to sort of explain and share our uh, our strategic timelines, and especially for lending, because it'll be quite expensive, and it will be one of the main things we'll be developing for the next couple of months, aside from everything else, of course. So we were planning to make sure that the UI is done first, so that we can then use the UI as a sort of like a sneak peek inside the roadmap, but also to help explain what it does.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, then that means first getting the UI done, which we hope to get done, including the development piece, because the design is done, but we now need to sort of develop it and then test it live internally, which we'll hope to do next week, or well, this week, because we're recording Monday. Um, and then what we'll be hoping to release this week, though, is because we've already done the whole vaults for that new chain, so we'll probably, push out the launch for the new chain, as in push it out first. So you'll likely start experiencing that new chain this week, for those of you waiting. And then we'll see if that's happening next week, or if everything, if we're lucky next week. But if uh, we still need some more time, maybe the week after. So that rough timelines is what we have right now, um, for the roadmap. Yeah.
So, new chain, roadmap, and then lending, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yep, in that order, correct.
Beautiful. So, it looks like there's been a big update to the staking page in that you guys have added a sFEED rank tracker. Now, this is a really cool feature. Whose idea was this?
Um, I guess I think it was me and Jimmy just chatting about how we could make it more fun and engaging to be an sFEED holder.
Mm-hmm.
um, because aside from all the benefits that you get with these unlocks and discounts. I think it's also pretty fun, to be somewhat competitive about things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, I don't think anybody's aiming to be like number one, but it's almost fun to be like, if um, you're sort of seeing your progress and how, because ownership, this sFEED tokens, aside from these benefits, it also represents your ownership and your impact to the entire project, right? Because the more you actually have sFEED, the more votes and the more impacts you can have and influence you can have on the direction because of your vote. Um, that's sort of the democratic. Well, I wouldn't say democratic. I think not. Well, each sFEED has it's representing votes, so it's democratic in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a one man one vote type thing, but still, that's how uh, voting works with companies and stuff like that. Because you have a greater economic incentive and economic
Impact.
outcome that impacts you, right? Because you're committed, you're more committed than others, relative to how much sFEED you hold, because that's how much capital you put in. So it makes sense for you to have more or less say, depending on how much sFEED you have when it comes to voting. So I guess that makes sense. So this tracker then sort of helps visualize your progress in that sense, how much you've been accumulating, or you've been decreasing your allocation, and how that also impacts your rank relative to everybody else in this sFEED cap table, as I would call it.
Yeah. I really think it's nice to kind of turn it into almost like a leaderboard. You know, people can compete to see who has the highest thing. But yeah, definitely really cool to show where people are at in the chart there. And you can read more about sFEED's tokenomics in our new and updated document page for sFEED. Be sure to find that in the weekly update article. So, the peer-to-peer lending revolution. The audit has been completed. We've posted it. Yeah.
We did, yeah, we did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I could have sworn we did. um, yeah. Anything you want to touch on this week with the lending?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of people trying to understand what this whole lending thing is about, because they're either new or just re-engage with us as we are sort of getting a lot of traction lately. And I promise some of them that we'll talk about high level what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've talked about it before, but just to quickly give that that sort of explanation so people can have an idea. But you'll obviously find out a lot more in the roadmap update, because that's where we'll go deep into the details with some visuals. But basically, in a nutshell, this P2P lending is something at this point still somewhat revolutionary to the DeFi space. And I know a couple of years back, 2, 3 years, maybe more back, there was, I think, Compound or Aave, I can't remember. But somebody did sort of tried this P2P lending model, but it didn't work at the time because there just weren't enough optionality for this to work.
Mm-hmm.
There were only a couple of handful of bigger tokens, so they adopted the lending pool model, which works well. So what our model does is basically it allows for two people to agree on a loan, just one to one. You and me, like DJ and Patrick, agreeing on lending and borrowing of assets.
Mm-hmm.
So what this means is, say I have 100,000 worth of $100,000 worth of sFEED,
Mm-hmm.
and I need $50,000 worth of stables to, do some toll meal farming, because it's printing 200-300% APYs, and I really want to get in on it. But unfortunately, I put all my money into sFEED. Traditionally or previously, my only option was to sell my sFEED or sell my feed in order to get in on that action, right? But because otherwise, I don't have the money. In this scenario, I don't have to sell feed or sFEED, because I can basically collateralize sFEED and borrow, say half of value of that sFEED in order to do whatever I need with that money. Um, and that's what I say. That's what I offer to do as a borrower. I'm saying to the marketplace, I'm willing to offer 100,000 worth of sFEED to borrow 50,000 worth of USDC for a month, and I'm willing to pay, say, 40% on that. And the reason why I'm willing to pay 40%, whereas the market might be offering 20% for USDC, is because number one, I'm making 20% off sFEED alone, right? Because that's what the APY is.
Right.
So that's, first of all, reduces my borrowing cost by half right away because I'm making 20% off sFEED and I'm paying 40% to the lender. On top of that, that 50K I just received or will receive from the lender, I'm going to be yield farming it for 200%. So assuming that my price predictions go well, or at least hold constant wherever I put that money, I'm going to be better off anyhow because I'm earning 20% of my $100,000 investment and I'm paying 40% on a $50,000 loan. Even if I don't make any money, I'm probably going to break even anyway, just because I'm only borrowing half of what I'm actually earning on. So that's sort of the concept, right? And for the lender, you're obviously going to be getting paid a lot higher than the market is because just how all these assets from sFEED to LPs and everything can be vaulted inside while they're collateralized inside the lending contract. So it helps not only allow for the borrower to reduce his net borrowing costs, but it also helps the lender be able to lend at a much higher rate just because somebody else is actually paying for all of this. And that's people emissioning their tokens for yield farmers. So I think that's a high level summary. Did I maybe miss anything, DJ?
Yeah, no. So you hit the nail pretty on the head. I guess I have just two questions for you. The first one is from myself. So will users be able to not only set requests to, loan out their assets? Will they also be able to create requests to borrow assets as well?
I think mechanically, and I'll have to wait for the UI, and this is sort of that sort of detail that we need to sort of work out
Sure.
how but I think mechanically how we're thinking about it is you as a borrower, you would pose what you're hoping to borrow
Gotcha.
and what you're willing to offer as a collateral, right? And you would indicate what your target lending rate is or borrowing rate is, what your target duration is,
Okay.
and the lender, and there could be multiple, could come in and offer. And it doesn't have to be exactly what you're requesting, because let's say you're requesting something that's outrageous,
Right.
Paying 1% interest, for instance. The lender could come in like, okay, I agree to lend you 50K for a month, but that 1% doesn't make any sense. I'm willing to do that at 40 or 50%. And
Right.
you have the ability to, agree or disagree.
So the borrower is the only one that is able to make requests then?
Well, that's for the borrower, right? And the lender could also offer in the
Gotcha.
marketplace to
Okay.
lend,
So,
if they have 100K or whatever. Yeah.
yep. Okay. Yep. So that answers my question. And then the second question comes from one of our Telegram users, Cisco. Cisco asks, can loan NFTs be collateralized in our lending platform at some point?
That's a very interesting question, actually. At some point, yes, because in our plans, we not only would allow tokens and LPs, to be collateralized in land, but
Sure.
it would also be NFTs. And so that's a really cool way to think about it because each loan that's done creates an NFT, which could then be traded on the marketplace, and you could technically collateralize on that too. So it makes sense. But technically speaking, the answer is yes.
Nice. So basically, you can, as a receipt for your transaction of borrowing or lending, you receive an NFT for that collateralization, correct? And then you would then be able to loan that out further, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah. That's technically true. I don't think there is any technical limitation to doing that because NFTs are NFTs.
That's amazing. Wow. Well, all right. Yeah. So that sums up peer to peer for now. Let's move a bit on to some of these vaults here. So, a few highlights. All these new vaults for Phantom are well over a couple 100%. Some of them reaching, what is it, 2.7 trillion%? Wow. So some really good APYs coming from the vaults here. How close are we to finishing the vaulting of FTM?
I think we're very close. I think the only missing major platform we haven't really launched is Beats, and that's because we face the same difficulty with ACS and ACSI because they're not LPs, they're not two-sided uh, pairs. They're multiple pairs, so you could be having eight different pairs inside a an LP, and the way we're going to do it is, and the hurdle for us there is we need to build we're hoping to build a converter for that,
Okay.
but it's very complex to build a converter for something like that.
Sounds expensive.
Um, and it would, yeah, probably be pretty, and the risk for the users as well is that you could be having a lot of impermanent loss um, because there's a greater impermanent loss risk when you're providing liquidity one side. If there are six pairs and you're only providing one,
Right.
you could be facing a lot of impermanent loss. That's not the case with a two-sided LP, but when there are six or seven, and so we're not sure if that even makes sense. And so the way we're likely going to do it is just to link it over to wherever you actually need the deposit. Similarly to how BT does it, just because it not only makes more sense for you to reduce your risk of that impermanent loss, but it's also a lot easier for us because building that auto converter is super time consuming and super complex. And it would sort of slow us down by quite a bit. Um, so in this special case, we'll probably just link into the exact page where you need to deposit and withdraw. It would still make life pretty simple for you because you don't have to look it up yourself. Um, but that would allow us to then release these vaults rather quickly. And then, at some point in the future, we can find a way to add that converter and maybe allow you to see how much impact you'll have, as in how much impermanent loss you're going to be seeing with that deposit, and maybe find a way for you to convert with multiple token deposits to reduce that impermanent loss. But that's sort of in the idea and planned buckets. So yeah, that's the update for FTM.
Well, and as we move past FTM, skipping a bit ahead here in the weekly update, multi-chain, previously AnySwap, we have a partnership with them. So, how? Oh, I'm sorry. How did this partnership come about? How long have discussions been going on for here? And what exactly is the result of those discussions? What will AnySwap provide for feeder finance?
Well, it started. I mean, it started small quite a while ago. I think the first token we bridge, or at least try, just to see how it goes, because um, bridging is it. It's a relatively new concept. It wasn't really a thing. We like there were bridges for BSC and ERC and stuff like that before. But now that we have 20, 30 chains, and bridges has become really important. And the first bridge we did for feed was Polygon, just to see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't launched on Polygon, but that was just because Polygon was the first sort of hype new chain thing back in the day.
Right.
So that's our first interaction, was to try and see what the process is for bridging. And then we had FTM, and we sort of discussed, and then we engaged with them again to discuss how we can ramp the bridging process up quickly, because we're going to be launching quickly into very many chains. So we engaged with them in a couple of calls, and they agreed to accelerate our process, help us add new chains quickly, and the cool thing is we'll not be bridging in that old-fashioned bridging way will be going through their latest version of the router. And what that means is bridging is centralized. So, the centralized entity sort of minting a new token on the other side when you're locking up your original token on the original side. Um, Routing is a decentralized smart contract mechanic where it feels almost like you're just swapping. You're basically just swapping a token on one side, and you're going to be receiving another token on the other side, and it's super fast. So that's how we're going to be allowing feed and sFEED to, you know, flow around and in and out of all of these chains once we launch in each of them. So yeah, that's the background.
That is super exciting. So we'll have an easy way to get a feed and sFEED to wherever you're headed. So
Yeah,
doubling.
and I
Oh,
think
sorry. Continue.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and I think the important thing to sort of think about, and I'm not trying to show or anything here, so it's not financial advice, but the way I'm thinking about it is, we have 100 million tokens of feed, and at the moment there's over 60% are staked, 65 actually are staked in a staking pool. So technically there's something like 35% of feed in circulation. So that's not a lot. That's 35 million. A lot of them are probably in the LPs anyway.
Right.
Um, and right now we're on BSC and FDM, so that represents a certain amount of people that are potential, call it investor and community, where the demand is coming from. But if we're launching on our next chain and then the next chain after that, and a lot of chains after that, that means we're expanding the scale or the amount of addressable market that we could reach in terms of the investors, our exposure and all of that. And it doesn't take a lot for us. We don't have to be home level hype for that circulating supply to deplete relatively quickly and become really scarce. And so that's why I'm truly excited about how we're expanding chains and how we're using these bridges to allow for feed to be present in all of these marketplaces. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah. No, there's certainly a lot of utility to come out of this partnership. So great job there, guys. Um, so tying up the last of this update, it looks like the historical balance is now available for sFEED holders of, what is it, 10,000 sFEED?
It's 10,250 SV.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Because number one, it also helps you track sort of how your amount of tokens are growing with the auto compounding of things. Because uh, some people get confused about how the math of things work.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're seeing APYs and when you're seeing your balance in US dollars or whatever currency you pick, you you think if you're not fully understanding things, you might be thinking, all right, I have $100 worth of cake auto compounding at 50%, so I should be receiving a little bit more dollars tomorrow because that $100 compounding at 50%,
Right.
which isn't technically true, because what all these compounding vaults are doing is they're compounding the rewards into more tokens, right? And so the value of a single token makes a difference too.
Right.
What this will then help you understand is that your token are just growing and growing, and then beside that, then you also see what the value are doing, and that would help you sort of make that investment decision to see like, if these tokens are growing, does it even make sense? Because at the rate at which the price is going down, because emissions means inflation, right? And as we all know in crypto, crypto is the inflation hedge, but tokens not necessarily, because if they're printing more than they're getting bought up or demanded, then it doesn't really mean the price can go up forever. So there is that balance you need to consider as well, and this would probably help make that decision, because too high inflation is not always a good thing, because the price may not be able to keep up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Pat, are you still there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry. I think it cut out for a second, but yeah. Um, yeah, no, there's a lot of utility to be had in viewing your balance over time. You know, you can make more informed decisions and better investment decisions as you have these types of tools available to you. So great work there. Um, a few other minor updates. It looks like two new currencies are supported: NOK and DKK. Um,
Yes, yes.
shout out to
Was a
our
quick request? Yeah.
shout out to our
Go ahead.
no, you're good. To our Danish and what is it, Norwegian users, if I'm not mistaken.
I think Swedish.
Swedish. Oops.
I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm a little green around the gills there, as you can see in Forex. um, but yeah, and a few other little tweaks here and there. You can see our developers are constantly hard at work. I believe that brings us to the end of our update, unless you have anything else you'd like to tell our users at home there, Pat.
Um, Sorry, I was just helping out our community here while we're on this call. Um,
Always hard at work.
I think, sorry, and then I got a call right now. Just yeah. So busy because we're we're doing this in my morning versus when we usually do it, at my 4 or 5 a.m. where nobody really calls and stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm excited about what's happening in the next 3 to 4 weeks because there's a lot happening as well as some surprises both on the roadmap and on some partnership fronts, which you'll find out pretty soon, very soon actually. So there's a lot of things going on development side, on our partnerships and marketing side that happening in the background, which you'll find out relatively soon. And especially what I'm most excited for, obviously, is our lending because of how much use case there is for this product, and even the community itself. Like how John or Cisco and Vin are figuring all this out by themselves to find strategies and in the case of Vin, for instance, figuring out that the P2P lending essentially creates an insurance structure for bulk investments, and stuff like that. I mean, it's just that's why I'm so excited about this product because it's not just simply, you lending some money to me, but you can structure your investments and portfolio right around, this whole lending feature. So I'm really looking forward to it, and that's why we want to make it really, really good in terms of how the UI and UX work and all of that. So it becomes a hit and lives up to its potential.
Yeah, no, the lending is definitely a unique product that I don't really think is being offered anywhere else. I think, it's reflected in the recent action that we've seen with Feed. A lot of feeders are coming home. Be sure to reach out to your former feeders and tell them what's up, guys. There's a lot of good stuff cooking here in the kitchen, and we want to bring everyone back for it. So get ready, the meal's coming. Influencers on the way soon. Lots of partnership updates to be had. The release of lending and our roadmap for it goes as far as Q2, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so lots of good stuff, guys. To help us out, we have a whole community support thing here in our weekly update. Be sure to check it out. Favorite us, like us wherever you can find us, and be sure to like, subscribe, and all that other fun jazz. That's all we have for you this week, folks. Thank you for tuning in, and Pat and I will be back at it again next week, hopefully to hash out some more interesting topics, and hopefully with some more news. Yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye, guys.